Adorgraph started as a family business. As Cuba updates its economic model, private business grow, and this small enterprise is not the exception. Adorgraph prints and designs in a variety of surfaces, promotional messages, and logotypes. Its main clients are state-run enterprises. They employ around 30 people, and the business also goes beyond its margins and gets involved in social activism. One of the owners and president of this small enterprise, Rubén Valladares, has a dream to remove the plastic bags of the stores and substitute them with environment-friendly recycled paper bags that they produce.
¿Cuáles son los desafíos diarios? ¿Cuáles son las potencialidades de este modelo de negocio?
People talk a lot about the changes in the Cuban economy, but actually we can only tell the real potential in this and the daily challenges that private workers face when you talk to one of them. That's why we thank you, Ruben, for this opportunity. We saw what you do here in this house that you rented as a headquarters of your business, Adorgraph. And I can tell that you have built this business very well using all the possibilities the government gives for this emerging type of activity. You have bank credit and others possibilities. But I want to know, what are the challenges of the private sector in Cuba, a country which is beginning to prepare in this field?
There are many challenges. From the moment you wake up, and sometimes you haven't even slept, you are facing challenges because you are always thinking about ways to solve everyday problems all the time, particularly in the case of raw materials. It is very difficult. And simply, you have to find alternatives always. We, as an alternative way to get raw materials, have worked for enterprises directly, for state enterprises, though we also work for private businesses. But essentially, we are working for state enterprises. From them, we get many of the things we need under some sort of contract, and we produce what they really need from us. It is things Cuban state enterprises cannot make today. So, in a, let's say, small or medium-sized manufacturing scale, we can deliver from 100 to 1,000 or 10,000 or 15 or 20,000 units. And sometimes during the year, there are enterprises to which we provide 100,000 under big contracts, and it is done. It is an important challenge to be aware of, and sometimes you go sleepless because you have to honor contracts, particularly those with the state sector, as those are contracts that have been signed previously and you must stick to the deadlines. That, of course, means
it's a pressure.
A pressure. Another pressure, particularly on those who are running the operation, the people in it. That is, we have taken some good things from state management techniques so that the business goes and works better. There are challenges sometimes in the form of meeting commitments on time because you don't have this or that. It may be ink or paper, so there are always problems which add up. That, of course, is a very big challenge under the very difficult and complex circumstances the country is in.
Hay quien piensa, Rubén, que people think that having a private business is only for a private activity, but you deal with state-run enterprises. And I wonder, Rubén, if it's not too much to ask, your vision, your experience, is it profitable to do this kind of thing? This bond works?
La empresa estatal.
Yes, of course. As to that, I believe it is important, it is normal. Sure, even though the state meets obstacles when it comes to paying, mainly because maybe they don't have a full understanding about the authority a state company has to cooperate or work directly with a private operation. And sometimes it is a little cumbersome to get direct payments by state enterprise to us. That's one issue. they have the resources, and above all, they have something which is very important, namely their need to acquire what we make. Relations are becoming increasingly fluid. For example, when we can sign contracts, we have a contract with Palco. We started with an enterprise. The Palco Business Group is a leading group of companies in Cuba. And working with it, of course, was difficult. Initially, it was a little bit difficult to tune ourselves up to the things they signed contracts for or to what they imported. That's another consideration. It's important to substitute imports because then you can get things in the country. And we have such products here. We make them with artisanal methods, and that also has a value. For example, as to Palco, we started working with one of the enterprises, and now we are preparing to work with 5 enterprises of that group. The same goes for Gaviota. It was very difficult, but we were the first self-employed people with whom they did business directly, and I think it's gone very well for the two parties, so it is possible. It can be done. Of course, both parties must meet their commitments.
Ustedes además tienen un propósito, Rubén, han desarrollado un trabajo.
Rubén, you also have made a kind of social activism. You work in schools and you bring also like workshops and work with vulnerable groups, especially with children. And I wonder why, even though this is not your main purpose, your main objective.
Cuando no debería ser su objeto social.
Although it is not our social purpose, as you put it rightly, I do think it is important, very important, to heed the social responsibility of a self-respecting company or operation. That's how we see it. And right from the start, our strategy envisaged doing this kind of work. It is true, it brings no earnings. Rather, commercially speaking, you could say it means expenses. Expenses even in the form of time. But that aside, it brings feelings which are above everything you may think of. Everything. Because you actually feel good with a sense of accomplishment and useful to society. Of course, that is linked to our upbringing during these years of the revolution, and that is not lost on a person who has been educated in our society, in our values. And it is not something we do one day. For example, we have been working with the school children for 2 years now. They make bags. We give them the materials so that they make them. Those bags always bear a printed message, which may be about the environment, or the love for nature, or a health message, or good advices you may give in society or the neighborhood. The love for that little space, the neighborhood. Those bags are given free of charge to the pharmacy in the neighborhood. So the neighborhood pharmacy uses them to sell medicines to people, but to those children that has a special meaning, as one thing goes with the other. They feel they are doing something very useful and are so happy. You ask them where the bags are, and they say in the pharmacy, and their grandfather or mother or father will go there and they will leave with their medicine in a little bag. How expensive can that be? It is not about money. Money doesn't matter. It is just something we do to prove within our means that the self-employed person is just another form of a business management which can make great contributions to society.
Hay algunos lugares del mundo, Rubén, donde...
Just to clarify, in other countries this kind of activity gives reduction in taxes. Works like that in Cuba?
No, it is not like that here in Cuba.
It's not a benefit in that sense for you.
Not at all. We continue meeting our tax obligations. We explain this to the children. Even one of the things with this project in the school is explaining who a self-employed person is under that notion. And we even tell them about the need to have taxation so that they have tax awareness early in life and really know why there are taxes. And the project with the orphan home children is the best thing we have. We call it with a little love, and we have brought other private businesses in so that they do likewise. We have urged them to do this. Sometimes they come in rather suspiciously, but those kids really steal your heart just like that. So you're in. So everybody attends each function always. We have a monthly functions. It is not that the kids aren't well taken care of. They are. The state looks after them. But we try to act in some little empty spaces that may be left and do things. And actually we're very happy about this band.
Adorgraph es una pequeña empresa, Rubén.
Othergraph is a small business that is a pioneer in a lot of ways. In this case that we're talking about is the first private business that creates a link, a kind of joint venture with an American company that has the same kind of business that you do. I'm talking about Commonwealth Packaging. You will even have a share stand in the International Fair of Havana. And this is interesting because the blockade of the United States towards Cuba remains intact. Nevertheless, you're doing this, and I wonder how it works when the legislation is still so complicated for this kind of initiative of working together, an American enterprise and a Cuban enterprise. How does it work?
Actually, today, as you said it, Christina, it is part of a dream, perhaps an utopia, a desire on both sides to work one day together for this country also. I think the largest beneficiary would be our country, which needs those goods and these things. Currently, the relationship is working in the sense we are exchanging, for instance, experiences on these matters with an entity which has been busy for over 50 years with the manufacturing of packages.
Commonwealth Packaging you're talking about.
Exactly. That U.S. entity is a family business and it has earned much respect and expanded its operations very much. They export their packaging materials to 3 continents, to stores, and to big companies. There is much common ground between us. They are also upholding environmental protection as one of their key objectives, as we are. So those are things which are above these current bans. They are above the blockade and above those legal hurdles in the way to carry out a joint project like this between a U.S. company and ourselves. Now we will be entering a second stage, namely, we will be together at the stand in the Havana International Fair. That will be something new, something that hasn't been done in Cuba. I have no information about precedent to that. But yes, I think we are the first ones to do that, and it adds much value to what we are doing. The relationship with them also.
How is it made? How is it possible when so many obstacles persist?
It is very difficult. I believe today it is practically impossible to implement it from the legal viewpoint, actually. We have been surmounting hurdles.
Why is it impossible?
Well, in actual fact, for instance, legally, the U.S. issues laws. They may authorize links and relations by a U.S. company with a Cuban enterprise.
Private.
A private one, just with a private one. But there is really another party, which is the Cuban state, with all its powers to issue domestic resolutions that haven't been passed publicly yet. For instance, there is no law in Cuba authorizing this kind of things. Recently, I was sent an article whose text was published in full by the Grumman's paper, referring to a series of measures like the possibility to open offices and warehouses belonging to a U.S. company in Cuba, but that was decreed in the United States. They are not taking into account that perhaps conditions do not exist in Cuba or there is no law authorizing that here. That's one of the problems. Another thing I believe is a key requirement for the state to be able one day to analyze these things is the lifting of the blockade. The day that blockade is no more, of course, there will be new possibilities for everybody, including private operations. But both private and state enterprises should be included. In that sense, the state will have to exercise its authority. But perhaps, apart from that, what does not harm the state and is done within the law may continue in the form of exchanges and knowing each other.
Cuba no puede lidiar con dólares.
Cuba cannot use dollars because of the legislation of the blockade. And due to the laws in Cuba, you cannot export to the United States. So, I wonder, in this kind of situation, what are the possibilities, the advantages that you see in case of a policy change and all this might be possible?
Cristina, there are so many possibilities and a big potential, of course. Let's think, hypothetically, that something of this could be done. We could set up a factory here to manufacture bags with an internationally prestiged company that has modern technology, and it could meet all the domestic demand in the country. That first. They would contribute with the raw materials and other things. Besides, it would be possible to export because they have clients. They have plants abroad, and one place could be China, for example. They have the factory, things would be brought from China, and we would have a potential market in the United States itself. Of course, the state would earn from taxation on the operations an enterprise like this might be doing, and it could apply to it as a natural person other taxes which would serve to regulate it, and that would be a social contribution we would be willing to make. So, there would be another important consideration for us, that is, eliminating plastic bags. That would be my dream fulfilled, eliminating the plastic bags being used today in the country. There's been a drive against them in the world. It is difficult worldwide. It can't be done even in many developed countries. In a country with a bad economic situation like ours, that of course is not a priority to eliminate them, but it is necessary, I think, in the short or mid-term, to start eliminating those white plastic bags you see all around here, and on which sometimes messages cannot be printed as no ink holds on them, and doing that would require very expensive technology, and also they are not biodegradable. They take 400 years to degrade, and 400 years is a long time.
For the environment has a high cost.
Replacing this with an environment-friendly product, I think, would be very good for Cuba.
Hay una visión, Rubén,
There's an approach of some people here in Cuba and also outside that the private business is the symbol of the capitalism coming back to this country. And even now, with the reestablishment of diplomatic relations between Cuba and the United States, and also the road being paved for normalization, this sector is seen, Ruben, as an agent of change that could work or coincide with the interests of the U.S. government, interests usually interventionist. Like, in this approach, this idea, this stereotype, you, the private sector, are considered traitors of the heritage of the Cuban Revolution. And I would like to know your opinion about this.
As you put it rightly, Cristina, those are stereotypes. I know of very many operations with another vision, as our vision that yes, we are agents of change, but of a change that is within the line of the revolution. And we have always worked and shall continue working having that in mind. That's for sure. There is no change at all as to that. On the contrary, it is enriching the Cuban scene, the economy, and society. They can earn so much from the industries private business can give to the country's economy due to the work of self-employed people or private producers or small businessmen who are really coming forward with a different vision, which does not contradict at all the ideas of the revolution, not at all. We've seen that mainly with activities organized by the government, where many self-employed people participate and make their contributions, and they should not be regarded as agents of change according to that viewpoint and cliché you hear around. Yes, we are agents of change at a given time in the sense we are changing to a way of thinking that did not exist in Cuba, to a different mode of production, but within a line, which the state can regulate as much as it deems fit, taking into account the needs of the state and the country and society at large. The contribution can be very good and interesting, but it doesn't mean necessarily returning to the capitalist system. It is not that.
One thing doesn't imply the other.
Not at all. One thing has nothing to do with the other, but I do know after having been interviewed by other media, also foreign and mainly US media, that such a reading does exist, that we are agents of change, persons who might make a difference. Yes, we are changing because this was unthinkable a few years ago, and of course there are changes, but not the changes others would really like to see. It is the internal changes Cuba has the right to make within its territory, and of course that should be respected as it is.
Can you be a private worker and a revolutionary man?
Of course, it is quite possible, very possible. I think it is important to see that there is no big contradiction in being revolutionary and self-employed. I believe a good entrepreneur should also be revolutionary because it has much common ground with a process like the one we are experiencing.
Thank you so much, Ruben. It's been a pleasure to know
Thank you.
and to know this kind of activity.